Hey, you want to build a massive business one day? What do you got to do? Go to meetings. And I know a lot of times people think there's got to be another. You know what, Rakesh? You know what, David? I think I can become a millionaire without going to that meeting thing. I don't need that hoorah. I don't need that motivation talk. I just need to know how to get paid and how to make money. And that's where so many people
Mute.
fail.
Mute. No.
Yes, mute. That's how so many people fail in this business, is because they have that type of mentality. In fact, I was on the path to have that similar type of mentality when I started here 13 years ago. In fact, I remember shortly after getting licensed, I was so excited. It took me so long to finally convince my brother and it was back then, it was his girlfriend, now it's his wife. It took me weeks to finally convince them to sit down with us. But when was the date of the appointment in which they can meet with us? You know what it was, guys? It was on a Monday night. Back then, meeting nights for us was meeting. We had Monday nights in Gold Street. We had Saturday mornings, Monday nights in Helen Ron's office in Burlingame, and then Saturday mornings in Gold Street. And so the only time that my brother could see us was on a Monday night. And so what did I do? I said, you know what? I knew Helen was going to be out of town. And so I was like, perfect time. Leader is out of town. I was part of Helen Ron's base shop back then. She was my upline SMD. She's out of town. She's at some New York City thing. And then my upline MD, she wasn't a very strong, imposing person. So I was like, okay, I could easily miss this meeting. And, I'm here to make part-time money anyway. And this is why I need to meet with my brother. This is the only time he's free. So I went and had that appointment. I remember my upline MD, Daisy, she called me. She says, hey, Justin, where are you at? And I was like, oh, I have an appointment with my brother. This is the only time he can meet. And she goes, oh. The next morning, Rakesh, I get two text messages about this long, each from Helen Ruan, basically telling me if I ever want to build anything significant or big in our business, never miss a meeting. That's essentially what it said. And I remember after getting that message, I felt all sorts of emotions, right? Sometimes you get that from your leader. I got all sorts of emotions. I was like, come on now, I'm doing this part-time. This is the only time my brother's free. And, I just took a step back and I analyzed. I was like, okay, at the end of the day, is she saying what she needs to say in order for me to win big? And the answer was yes, she is saying what she needs to say. And so my message to her, after I calmed down a little bit, I messaged her back and I said, you know what, Helen, it'll never happen again. And that was one of the biggest messages that I got that has served me extremely well the last 13 years here. So from small meetings to weekly meetings to big events, whenever there's any sort of event like that, do or die, we show up. And that's how we got to where we are today. And so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about meeting mentality. Well, I want to focus first and foremost about big events, because we have several big events that are coming up. And, I just want to give some ideas about it and reference some of our amazing resources. You guys know one of my favorite books is the system. Oh, sorry. Before we get into that, here's just my all-time GX qualifiers. Anything that's white is part of my base shop. The colors are the different SMD legs I have in my team and who has hit GX at least once during our time period. But you look at how many people we've hit GX over the years, and where did it come from? Well, I'll tell you guys, it all came from big events and meeting mentality. And let's look at the System Builder book, page 200 in the System Builder book. The title is Great Events, the Changing Machine. And I'll read it together with you guys. It says, you can never build a big team unless you understand the importance of the big event. We have Florida and Mexico City coming up. We also have G26, which is the epitome of all events of the year. And so what it says right there, you can never build a big team unless you understand the importance of the big event. At a big event, there is magic in crowds. The environment creates a condition for change. Those of you who have never been to an event yet, my goodness, just the energy alone in the arena is enough to get people to want to take action. So just that feel of being there that you cannot get. Yes, the weekly meetings, I love them. At the same time, that like a weekly meeting, especially if you're not in a big office like Gold Street. Gold Street, we have the luxury of having 300 to 300 people here on a weekly basis. But if you're in a smaller office, maybe there's just 5, 10, 15 of you in the room, then that magic is not there. If it's not there in the 300 people in Gold Street, then can you imagine what more for a smaller office? So being in that crowd is enough, even just to get people to wake up and change their mind. When people travel, when people put commitment to travel and go somewhere away from home and invest time and money, they listen more seriously. The fact that they traveled to an event and got out of their comfort zone shows they're making a change. Next, when the team travels together, they work with more intensity and urgency. You know, we talk a lot about, I know I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, but, you know, when you look at the crest for the green jacket over here, right? You know, it's recruiting mentality, fast start mentality, meeting mentality, and then the fourth mentality is what? Teamwork mentality. But I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, in order for you to hit any sort of big accomplishment in our business, it's all about teamwork. But what kind of team is there if there's no meeting mentality where they're getting together on a weekly basis, and especially on a quarterly and annually basis? So when we travel together as a team, it glues us more together. We're aligned with our goals. We're in it together. We know that whatever we bring to the table matters for the success of the team. And that's what happens when we travel. People tend to compare themselves with others. When they see someone just like them do it, they think, if he can do it and if she can do it, then I can do it too. You know, let me tell you a story, Rakesh. I have this lady in my team. When she first joined the business, it took me about 1.5 years to become a marketing director. And, you know, so of course, when I bring on board new people into the team, they see my track record of taking 1.5 years to become a marketing director. They all think that's the norm, correct? And so I kept telling this lady, you know, her name is Auntie Lu. Auntie Lu, come on. I know that you can do it. You can do it faster than me. But she just goes, yeah, you know, I'll see. We'll see it happen. Anyway, so I bring her to the convention. It was Las Vegas in 2014. The last day of the event, they just say, anyone who's ever hit marketing director in 60 days or less from the day you joined this company, come to the stage. And you know what, David? The stage was filled with people. And I remember Auntie Lu, she leans over to me. She goes, wow, Justin, is that true? You can really do it that fast? I said, yes. And hey, wasn't I saying that to her from day one? But it wasn't from me. I was saying the same message that she sees on that stage. But when she went to the event, she traveled there, she took the time and commitment to be there, and then she sees what she needs to hear, and it hits her in a way completely different than same old Justin and Gold Street telling her. That's when, boom, things happen. And she came home. She didn't take 60 days to her marketing director. She hit it in 30 days. And that's why, for me, it took me 1.5 years to become marketing director. And then it only took me another 3 months to become senior marketing director because I brought that lady to that event. So my message, yes, I tell you guys, I'm confident in my abilities as a trainer and talking to people, but I know for a fact that our teams, they become deaf to us. And sometimes they just need to hear the same message from a completely different person that they can relate to. And that's what gives them that inspiration and excitement. And then sometimes, you know, we're just too close to listen. It says you're not a prophet in your own land. Most of the time, your people will not listen to you. And if they do, they won't listen seriously. But when they go to the big event, they listen to other people. Most people do not like to be told to change. They will only change from a personal decision deep inside of them and from somebody or something said that they can relate to. And so you cannot change people, but you can bring people to life-changing events. You cannot build people, but you can bring people to big building events. Let me give you an example of one of the legs in my team that is all like so much of the results and the progress and the milestones were hit just from big events. Okay, so let's see, how are we doing with time? Okay, let me go through this. Okay, so this first guy, so when I very first joined the business, ladies and gentlemen, I had a friend. I tried to prospect his older brothers because they're my age. Finally, this guy, he just says to me, she goes, you know what? So what exactly is that business? You keep trying to tell my brothers about it. Is that something that I could do too? At the time, he was a college kid, Rakesh, 21 years old, not a single serious bone in his body. So I did not think of prospecting him at all. But he says, So I told him, I go, I mean, yeah, you could if you want, but he goes, oh, I'd like to learn more. In fact, he goes, know what? I was so not thinking that this guy could do anything. So I told him, you know what I told him? I said, instead of me taking the time to present to him, I told him, I was like, hey, why don't you go to the office and listen to the presentation? Right? That's how much little faith I had in him, right? But you know what I did to Mikia? I went to the office, and guess who was the presenter that day? The one who did red flip chart. Back in those days, we had red flip chart. Guess who was the red flip chart presenter that day to Mikia here in Gold Street? None other than the upline of Alicia Nguyen, Coach. So Coach was the BPM presenter. He comes out of the BPM, this guy comes out of the BPM room, and after that he goes, wow, that sounds good. You know, the guy said that I need to talk to you on how to get started. I have $100. Can you sign me up now? I was like, okay, I guess we'll sign you up. So we signed him up, and he ends up becoming very excited about the business. In fact, so then the time comes, he's ready to finish up his 3-3-30. Okay, he's ready to finish his 3-3-30. It's kind of like GX back in the day. So he's ready to finish his 3-3-30. And you know, we're short one recruit. And in fact, this was the last recruit for him to finish his associate 35% level. And it was the last recruit, Rakesh, for me to hit marketing director. And so we basically tried to prospect and set up appointments for many people as we could. It was the last few days of the month, and we're like, you know what? Let's ask our friend Jasper. Jasper was one of our good friends. The three of us are very close, but at that time, Jasper was very negative about our business. And so we spoke to him, presented to him, and he's like, yeah, you know, I'm not interested in doing this thing. We're like, well, can you just sign up to help us hit our promotion, please? And he goes, fine, as long as I don't have to do anything. And so we signed him up, and he goes, okay, is that it? Are we done? And we said yes. So he joined, but then had no interest at all to do the business. So that was 2014. Now, fast forward a few years, we have a convention coming up in New Orleans, okay? And I did something crazy that year, ladies and gentlemen, because by this time I'm in the business about 4 years, 3 to 4 years, and I know the power of the event. So what I did for that event was I bought 20 round trip airline tickets with Southwest Airline to lock in the low cost. And mind you guys, I was a struggling SMD at that time. And so I bought 20 tickets, round trip airplane tickets, so that if I can get people to show up to the last minute. Now, it was the last week before the event, and I had a choice. I can either sell it, which there were plenty of people here in Gold Street ready to buy tickets at only $250 round trip to New Orleans. So many people. But I was like, you know what? I'd rather gamble on someone than lose the money. I'd rather gamble on someone and lose the money than sell it at this point. So I went back to Jasper. I said, Jasper, would you like to go to a convention? And he goes, oh, is that what that WFG thing? I said, yes, it is. He goes, no, I'm not interested. He gave me a long list of reasons why he couldn't come. And he goes, I go, okay, well, no problem. I was just checking. And then you know what he says to me? He says, so where's your convention at anyway? And I tell him, David, I go, oh, it's in New Orleans. And he goes, oh, I've always wanted to go to New Orleans. I go, yes, come with me. You know, Joe's going to be there, blah, blah, blah. And then so after some back and forth, he decides to come with us. But I told him, I was like, okay, you just have to promise you'll come to the event. After we'll eat whatever po' boys and Creole food, whatever. We'll do that all after, but you just have to come to the event. So he promises to come to the event. And my gosh, after the event, Rakesh, he gets so fired up. In fact, we get back to San Jose. He passes his license in 2 days. And back then we have this thing called 210. That's kind of like GX today. He starts running 210 multiple times. So he gets on fire. But then what happens is towards the end of the year, he has some, you know, kind of like not emotionally strong guy. His girlfriend broke up with him and he starts going on this downward spiral. But before he quits, he tells me, he goes, hey, I know somebody that I think could be interested in this business. We were partners in the Army together in El Paso. Let's talk to him. I go, okay, sure, let's talk to him. And that guy's this guy named Sikander Lodi. So we bring this guy into the business, and you know, we present to him over the phone while he's driving from Texas to California, and he decides to join. So we recruit him over the phone, and then shortly after we recruit him, that's when Jasper dies out of the business, unfortunately. So Jasper, this guy JB, dies out of the business. And then because of that, Lodi starts to feel a little bit unsure if he wants to stay in it. Around Christmas time, he tells me, he says, you know what, I don't think this, I'm not going to be so aggressive in the business, but I'll stick around. That's what he tells me. But a lot of times when our people tell us that, that's just their way of politely telling us they're quitting, right, guys? So we told him, it's like, you know what? Just come to the convention. We had launched 2018 at that time. Guess what, guys? He goes to convention. In fact, he goes to both locations. We go to Atlanta together, then we go to Phoenix together. And then after that, boom, he's back in the business, stronger than ever. Fast forward a year. So he went from quitting to coming into the business. Now, fast forward a year, he revives a lady back into the business. So she joins the team. And then together, they try to prospect this lady LM's friend. The friend says, you know what, I'm not interested, but maybe you can talk to my son. And so we end up setting up the appointment. Lodi sets up the appointment to talk to the son, and that kid is named John Keenez. Okay, so then we go and present to John Keenez. He decides to join. But like many people, when they join, what happens? They disappear, isn't it? It's like, it's better than going to Vegas. They join and then they disappear. This guy disappeared for like 2 weeks. We were like calling him, texting him. We tried to stop by, nothing. Finally, he sends me a response after 2 weeks. He goes, sorry, I've been so busy, blah, 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 blah. I was like, you know what? It's okay, no worries. Hey, by the way, this coming weekend, we have an event in Palm Springs called Trainer Academy. Can you come with us to this event so it's the fastest way for you to learn the business. So he says, okay, I'll go with you. So he goes to Trainer Academy. After the afternoon session, he listens to Victor Salvador from the morning to the lunch session, just about 4 hours. We go to lunch together. I go, so how do you like it so far? He goes, oh, I know exactly what to do. And so he ends up sticking in the business, right? And that's what gets him to rock and roll. Eventually, then pandemic, he hits marketing director, pandemic happens. We bring in a few of his young friends in their early 20s. And then eventually this guy, RC, brings in his girlfriend who's 19 years old. And at this point, I'm starting to think like, okay, we're bringing in all these young people. Like, they don't have money. They barely have any money. They barely have any money to join. I'm just like, okay, well, whatever they want to do it, we'll do it. So finally, we bring in this 19-year-old. And at that time, we have a big event coming up in Texas, which is the September Surge. You guys might remember that. So we bring her there. She buys her ticket. And then we go to the event. She comes back very excited. Then the mom asks her, David, she goes, where have you been? She goes, oh, I went to this convention event in Texas. She goes, okay, well, I'd like to hear more about it. And so it was funny because that day because then this lady, JC, she tells John and I, she says, hey, my mom can meet. She's very interested. And I had learned from JC that the mom was a business owner. She owns care homes, stuff like that. So since John and I were already having an appointment together, I told Mrs. Mambahi, my wife, I said, hey, babe, I don't think this RL guy is strong enough to go out with JC together. So can you go with them? And then so my wife, Maria, goes with JC and RL to present to the mom. And then at the end, Maria, my wife, just goes, you know what? Why don't you just sign up? If you want to support your daughter, just sign up. And so, yes, she was one of those people where she's just signing up to help the daughter. Okay. But she ends up joining. That lady's name is Rosalie Amakan. So she joins, and then we end up fast starting her. And that's where she becomes interested to actually do the business. She's a little bit on the slow track. She's a very busy, owns care homes, very busy businesswoman, but we get her to go to Launch 22. Okay. So Launch 22, she goes to that. She ends up going to both locations with us, to New Orleans and also to Fresno. And after that, she's excited to run. She runs. Eventually, she brings in a lady named Phoebe. Okay. Phoebe Robles. She had been in the business before, but kind of got burned about the business. And so she's like, well, I'm willing to try again, but don't count on me to go fast. Well, guess what? We get her to go to G24. That's what's coming up at that time. G24 gets her excited. She gets her partner involved. And then together they go out and recruit people. And they bring in this guy named Brian Berdiago. And by the way, anyone where their picture is big, these are people who've hit GX, okay? So they bring in Brian Berdiago. Now, when he joins, though, he's very apprehensive, hard to get a hold of. We get him to go to Campaigner Clinic. That's the next closest event. So does everyone kind of see a trend so far? We just bring him on board, get him to the next event. Bring him on board, get him to the next event. Bring him on board, get him to the next event. After he goes to Campaigner Clinic, he gets excited. He talks to his cousin, and then the cousin recruits the sister and the other church friend. They both also become GX, okay? Now, also, too, this Rosalie, She brings in another lady. She prospects one of her co-homeowner friends. And the lady decides to, she comes on board, she gets sliced, she comes on board, but she's going very slow. Again, very busy business people. But you know what? She comes on board, we get her to go to G25, and look what happens within just a few months of going to G25. She gets all of these people to hit GX under her. Right after G25. She went from having zero time, Tamikia, to having all the time in the world to get people to prospect and hit GX. So you see, guys, see how the events are changing people's minds to take action. Now, of course, so this is the people that were built from the event, but of course, many other GXs came out of this. And this is all just from one leg that started, from a friend that I didn't even want to recruit. And then eventually another friend that we kind of forced to join, but we got that friend to go to a convention, and then boom. We've heard the phrase, you say you join for the wrong reason, but you stay for the right reason. Just like how my friend joined for the wrong reason, but stayed for the right reason. Rosalie Amakan joined for the wrong reason, stayed for the right reason. And this is some of our biggest. We have 3 SMDs out of this. John Kines became a green jacket. Sikander Lodi and them all, hit their income rings and everything like that. Lola Ali right here, she's about to become an SMD. And but yeah, you look at that, the people in yellow, these are the people that were with me before GX program started. So notice how all of these people around here came as a result of running GX and plugging them into meetings, especially big events. And you look, when GX program started, this is our team at the Launch 2023 convention. Not very many of us, but as of when we had G25 in Sacramento, this is the first time we brought over 100 people to a convention. Was because of that consistent GX and getting people to meetings. And since we're talking about big events, but you guys know, on a weekly basis, we have every time we go to meetings, it's a chance for us to look at it as a mini convention. And so within our team, yes, we have strong meeting mentality. Look, Sikander Lodi opened the office in Oklahoma City because he wanted to go back. That's his stomping grounds. We set up an office there for him. And then this is another office within our team. We set it up back in November of last year in Santa Rosa, California. Because of that, that's the Dr. Lola lady that owns the multiple care homes. It was just basically an open room, 4,500 square feet. We got it up and running within 2 weeks and have consistent BPMs there twice a week. And then all of the plugins we go to, we currently have 6 offices our team is plugging into with at least 1 GX. Most of them on average have 3 to 4 GX per office. So yes, this is how we build our team. Big events, and then the weekly events through the meetings and the conventions, or sorry, through the regular team meeting. And then this is, of course, my home base in Gold Street. Everything about meeting mentality, sitting together, fighting to sit in the front. And yes, this is just my team right here in these pictures that come to us twice a week in Gold Street. And even then, meeting mentality, going to big events, wearing the right uniform is all part of it. In fact, this is one of my guys in Maitland office, working under the partnership with Zenny and Bing. And, yeah, he did one of the trainings, but then it's funny. I said to him, I was like, not bad, Grasshopper, but where's your MD blazer and white GX shirt and tie? You should wear uniform whenever it's meeting time. See, so even just having people, having that uniform is all part of having that strong meeting mentality. So I know we're coming to a close here, but let's just talk about, how do we continue to build with all of the great events coming up? You guys know we have Mexico City and Florida coming up in about a week or so. And, if you didn't get to qualify and go this time around, well, I hope everybody, just from the short 20, 30 minutes that we've been talking today, you guys start to understand the power of the big event and how it can change minds and hearts to become superstars in our business. I am where I am today because I attended many meetings. My team is where we are today because they attend many meetings. And that's the message that we continually preach over day in and day out. So we have 31 people, which includes spouses, that are going to Mexico City and Florida with us. We're ready to have a massive explosion coming out of this. And we know that this is the event that's going to lead into G26. As of right now, my team only has 213 tickets. That's all we were able to secure, right? But we know that, first of all, I told my team, I said, you know what? Yes, we might only have 213 tickets, but don't be afraid to oversell don't be afraid to overcommit and overbook people to go to this event, because we all know, even if everyone is booked perfectly for the event, we know that some people still fall off. That's very normal. So we never have 100% attendance with the existing tickets. So that's why I told people, it's like, just fight for people to go. And you know what? I'm pretty sure we're also going to be able to find extra tickets here and there from people that also didn't have time to show up. But make sure that you're very aggressive on getting people to show up, because your next superstars, your next explosion, your your next event that's going to change your life is the ones that are happening next. So I hope everyone on this call today, you get a little bit of my experience of how our business was created and born from event to event to event, and reinforced on a weekly basis through meeting mentality. And I'm so excited with everybody in this call. 2026 is going to be our year as WSP, especially what Coach is talking about, securities licensing, being able to really dominate this industry. It's all domination of the industry. Yes, we have to have the right weapons and tools, but we also have the heart and the mind. And that's what we get from going to meeting after meeting after meeting. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, please, I know a lot of us have extra tickets on hand. Convention's only about 90 days away. If you guys didn't realize that or not, convention's only about 90 days away. So what are you doing right here, right now, today, especially as we go into breakout meeting? What are you going to do to make sure that you start to secure people to go to this life-changing event? So I want to leave that as the final message. Fight to get people to G26. Fight to prepare properly for Mexico and Florida. And I'll see you all at the top, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great evening.